It's with great pleasure that I welcome back Dr. Sean Patel, who's the CEO and founder of Prep Expert, the title sponsor of the College Admissions Process podcast. Sean, you have a special message for the listeners?
Hey, John, I just wanted to mention for all the parents and students who are listening to this great podcast, we have a really special offer only for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast for Prep Expert. So if your student is going to be taking an online SAT, ACT, PSAT course anytime soon, or is looking for one-on-one tutoring with top 1% tutors, head over to prepexpert.com. We offer live online courses for every college admissions exam. On top of that, we have the best score guarantees, best curriculum, and best instructors in the test prep industry. And just for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast, you can get 20% off any online SAT or PSAT or ACT course, as well as one-on-one tutoring. So you can get 20% off. Just make sure you use the promo code College Talk. That's one word, College Talk, and you'll get 20% off just for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast. And I hope you guys can use that to your advantage, save a bunch of money at prepexpert.com.
Thank you so much, Sean. And to everyone out there, once again, that promo code is College Talk. That's one word, College Talk. Thank you all, and best wishes. Welcome to The Cap, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Durante. Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to three special guests today. We have Jesse Leary Yagher, who's the Director of Recruitment at Denison University. We also have Caitlin Ladda, who's the Director of Selection at Denison University. And we also have Grace Ostrosky, who's a current sophomore at Denison, studying creative writing and journalism. I'm so happy to have everyone, and the format will be that I will ask a question, I will call on one person, and others might chime in to answer that question as well. So we're going to start with Jesse. Jesse, welcome. And for listeners who may not be familiar, can you start by giving an overview of Denison University and what makes it stand out among national liberal arts colleges, especially when it comes to its focus on mentorship, intellectual exploration, and preparing students for lives of purpose?
Yes, thanks, John. Happy to be speaking with you all today. My name is Jesse Yagher. I'm a Director of Recruitment at Denison and a Denison alum. I graduated from the college in 2010. And I'm doubly biased. There's not really someone that's more objective about Denison than I am in terms of the way the college prepares students to lead lives of success personally and professionally as they finish their undergraduate career. In the big picture, Denison is a 4-year residential liberal arts college. Our students are from all over the country, all over the world. We have 2,300 students on our campus. Denison's fully residential, and so our students really enjoy the piece about mentorship and relationships. They really enjoy the opportunity to connect across difference with students who may be similar to them and maybe from totally different backgrounds than them. Our students, like I mentioned, live on campus and enjoy living in the beautiful New England-style village of Granville, Ohio. Our students are from 50 states, or 50 different countries, and 80% of them are from outside Ohio. So if you're listening from outside the Midwest, you and your students would be in good company here in Granville. I think when I think about Denison, I think about relationships and I think about mentorship. So a huge element of the college is this idea of connecting with faculty and staff. We have both formal and informal ways that students will do that at Denison. Being a residential liberal arts college, there is just a kind of natural connectedness with one another. But faculty I should say Denison is a undergraduate liberal arts college as opposed to the university that it sounds like given its name. So mentorship with faculty is a huge piece of why everyone's there on campus. We have a summer scholars program where students can design their own research and work with a professor over the summer. They get 10 weeks to carry out the project, free housing, and they get paid a stipend just shy of $5,000 for one example of mentorship. We also have about 30 different staff members working in our career center, and those are some of the first relationships students often form on campus is with the folks in the career office. In terms of intellectual exploration, Denison is a liberal arts college, like I mentioned, and so we do not need you to be a fully formed human in terms of what it is you want to study and what you want to be. We don't think that your career is equal to what you're going to major in, and so we really encourage students to be multi-interested. In general, Denison allows students to explore until the end of their sophomore year with the ability to still graduate on time in 4 years. So our students make interesting combinations. We have a student with us on the podcast, so I'll let her talk about that in the future. But it's very, very common to major across disciplines, to double major, major minor. There is no curricular reason why you cannot combine two different areas of study at Denison. So we encourage students to be multi-interested personally and in their academic lives. And then to the point of lives of purpose, I think our mission statement talks about our students growing to be discerning moral agents who can work in a complex world. And the liberal arts is all about giving students the tools they need to personally and professionally make an impact as they graduate from the college. So I think living on campus for all 4 years, people who are like you, people who are not like you, connecting across difference is a huge part of preparing students to live lives of purpose on the other side. We do offer one example of this in practice is that the Career Center offers something called the Journey Program, where sophomores are all but required to go take 2 or 3 days to do this program with the Career Center, to have time set apart to think about who they want to be, what they want to be personally and professionally. And I think it speaks to Denison's holistic approach to thinking about who you are and what's of interest to you. Caitlin, Grace, are there big kind of Denison points I left out about describing the place that you would add?
I think something really important that Denison emphasizes is that the best years of your life shouldn't happen in college. So kind of as Jesse explained, everything that you learn during your 4 years here is really meant to prepare you for an entire life of big and beautiful experiences. So that's really the only thing I would add.
Well, thank you so much for the overview. 2,300 students who are fully residential, which is a unique opportunity as you really get to immerse yourself with all of the other students on that awesome campus. Mentorship opportunities galore, and you want students who are multi-interested, as you are, in fact, a liberal arts schools. Now, Caitlin, let's turn to you. Denison emphasizes, again, that liberal arts education rooted in critical thinking, leadership, and community engagement. How can applicants demonstrate that they understand and align with Denison's mission and values in their application materials?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, like many of our peers, Denison is going to review your application holistically. But what we're really seeking are students who have demonstrated a seriousness, a commitment to their academic lives, also students who bring a variety of interests both in and out of the classroom. We want students with a diverse set of characteristics, not just geography, like Jesse mentioned, and a group of students who bring great personal qualities to our dynamic campus community. As a fully residential college, this is somewhere where it's important to us that students want to be on a residential college. We don't expect for a student's personal activities on their application to mirror 100% what they will be doing at Denison once they're a student. But we do expect that if a student is relatively involved throughout their high school career, that they will remain relatively involved at Denison, which is something that's really important. I think Jesse and Grace really hit this on the head, but one thing that makes Denison, I think, a little bit different than some peers is that students really are so actively involved on campus. They are active agents in their experience. And if any of your listeners have the opportunity to visit, they will see that. I know we're going to talk more about the application review and what we look for, but that's just a little sampling of how students can demonstrate that they are great fits for Denison. The last thing I'll say on that is that I just encourage students to be themselves in their application, regardless of whether they're applying to Denison or somewhere else. That's how they can demonstrate that they belong at the college where they ultimately end up.
Well, you made it clear that you're looking for students that are very serious and committed to their academic lives, not only in your classrooms, but beyond. And you want to see active involvement again in the academics, but also outside of that great classroom. Now, Caitlin, our listeners are always curious about the application review, which you touched upon. So once an application is submitted, how does it move through your office? In other words, how many people typically read it? And what types of conversations or considerations take place during committee review?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially because this works so differently from institution to institution. So at Denison, a majority of applications are read by the territory manager, so the person who is responsible for recruiting in a specific area of the country or the world generally has the first set of eyes on an application. After that, it is read by a member of our second reading team. The second reading team here at Denison tends to be returning readers who are a little bit more seasoned in the act of application reading. And then some students do not get that third formal read or committee conversation. There is a group of students who is brought to a committee, and we do those committees throughout the application review cycle to make sure that our team is normed and to also make sure that applications are ending up where they ultimately need to be. So most applications are read at least twice. Many of them are then considered a third time. And then in the end, the leadership group, we're looking at the class as a whole. And so applications are considered once again before we send out those final decisions.
Well, we appreciate that overview, Caitlin. And I also like that you mentioned that the first reader is the territory manager. So, students, if you have someone from Denison visiting your high school, there's a strong chance that that's the actual person that represents your territory and will be the first one reading your application. So, it's really a good idea just to get to know that person if, in fact, Denison is the school that you really want for yourself. Now, Jesse, I'm going to come back to you because many students wonder whether colleges evaluate applicants based on their intended major or view everyone through a broader academic lens. At Denison specifically, how do you consider a student's stated academic interest, and does a second choice area of interest ever factor into the decision?
Yeah, Denison, you don't apply to major at Denison. So you have all the freedom in the world to put whatever intended course of study you'd like onto your common application. So that is where students kind of indicate to us what they think they'd like to study. But in true liberal arts fashion, it's more of a hand-raising situation than actually applying to a certain college or certain major. So again, Denison's a university by name, but we really are a college. We only have undergraduate students. We don't have different colleges, say a college of business or a college of medicine or a college of communication. And so you are just giving your best guess based on what you've studied in high school, which is what every high school student is really doing, of what they think they might want to study. So there's a lot of freedom there for students. At the same time, you can list multiple academic majors. All of the majors that come up on the Common App are ones Denison has. So you don't have to worry about what if I select a program that's not available. So for example, in years past, students were able to select nursing from the Common App list and when they applied to Denison. We don't have a nursing program, and so sometimes that would be to the student's disadvantage during application review. But now Common App and Denison are in sync, and so any of the options you might select are equally kind of complicit with our curriculum and are not durable. And so we often have students who reach out once they've enrolled and said, hey, I applied, I'm coming in as a biology major, but I want to be a music major. And although the difference is meaningful to them, it is not meaningful to us because we read their application in the exact same way and the onboarding process is exactly the same. And ultimately, when you select your courses for your first semester, that's when you meaningfully raise your hand to say, this is my course of study. And you can be undecided, or I kind of think of it as multi-interested, until end of sophomore year. It's a very low stakes situation when you're applying to Denison. Other colleges may not obviously have the same approach, but I'm going to have Grace talk about how she navigated the application process with majors in mind and then where she ultimately landed in terms of her course of study.
Yes, thank you, Jesse. So when I was in high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to study. I was bouncing around a bunch of different ideas, a bunch of different potential career paths, and I applied to Denison as an educational studies major. But I always had a big interest in creative writing and journalism. And when I attended Denison and was taking classes, I was really able to explore different departments, different disciplines. As we've kind of mentioned, students are really encouraged to explore academically. And I think you can really do that through general education requirements in kind of that liberal arts fashion. It was through taking my general education requirements that I changed my major and discovered what I really kind of wanted to study. And I think all students are encouraged to really take their time. Most people I know have changed their major at least once. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jesse and Grace. Grace, particularly you, in terms of sharing your own journey. And Jesse, I love what you said. It's not that a student is undecided, they are multi interested, which I think is great. So we're going to come back to you, Jesse. Denison attracts, as we know, students from a wide variety of high school backgrounds. Can you talk about how you review things like the transcript and assess everything from rigor and GPA recalculation, and also whether you use tests as part of your overall review?
Yes, I love to talk about this. I often feel when we get to this part of the admission process, you really feel the stress rise in the room because students are wondering, do you know how hard it is at my high school? And the implication is how easy it is at my neighbor's high school. And will I get credit for all of the trial I've subjected myself to by enduring this curriculum or this school? And the answer is yes. We really, I think it's important for students to see we do use logic when evaluating applications. It is probably not the logic they use when they think about what is important or what is most qualifying for an application. So I'll come back to the idea of GPAs. That's one I think where we miss a lot. But in the big picture, the transcript is the most important part of your application to Denison. So that is to say, 4 years in high school is the absolute best indicator of how you'll do for 4 years at Denison. 4 hours taking your ACT might tell us about your abilities, might not tell us about your abilities. Denison has been test optional since 2007 for the last 15 years. So I know, and I was glad COVID really helped test optional come to the fore nationally. Denison has been practicing test optional admission since most of these student listeners have been alive, which is to say, we feel really confident using the transcript as the base and as the only thing we need to review someone's eligibility for admission. We feel decently confident in that because of the way we read transcripts then and like how much we get from that in terms of information about qualification. So as Caitlin said, one person will give the application its first read, and we will say, based on the high school you go to, not the school down the street, not the parochial school, not the independent school, but like the literal school you go to, because we know so few students actually have choice in where they go to high school. What is the curriculum at your school? Meaning AP, IB, honors, none of it, post-secondary. Like, what do you literally have available to you? What do you choose to take based on, again, all of the confounding challenges of high school? And then how did you do in those courses? And so the application is reviewed first by the territory manager, who says to the admission committee, here's the context. Here's what we normally see from this high school. Here's the curriculum that's standard for us. Here's the nuances of like, they always have to do a senior research project, or, each school has its own curricular kind of nuances. So they present that to the admission committee. And we try to divorce then when it comes to GPAs. We divorce rigor from grades, and we recalculate students' internal GPAs. I feel that high school students hold their GPAs closely. They are proud of them, maybe protective of them. They feel they really, like a close tie. We don't feel the same way about your weighted, unweighted GPA. We read applications from across the country and across the world. So in order to standardize application review, we must recalculate GPAs. We don't discredit the rigor a student has taken. In fact, we give students credit for rigor. We look at relative to your school, what rigor do you have in your schedule, including senior year, and what grades did you earn in the courses you took. And so I think it's actually better, I know it's a better indicator of students' preparedness to do this, but I know it freaks high school kids out because their GPA is often without class rank. It is the way that they assess their worthiness for selective admission, and it's not the same logic that we use. So all that to say, we do have lots of applicants with AP and IB curriculum. I also know many students go to high schools that don't have those. And so separate from like giving credit for those, that's the registrar's office, in order to be admitted to Denison, we're looking for students who have taken the most demanding curriculum at their high school, or if your school offers 50 APs, like a very reasonable amount of AP courses. We do want you to have a lunch period. We do want you to take band if you like being in the band. We really don't want you to sacrifice your humanity in the name of getting the rigor. But we do, when it's available, we do expect to see it on our side in terms of evaluation. Caitlin, what did I miss?
I think Jessie really hit it on the head. I think just what I'll say again, because this is the question that we are asked over and over and over again, is it better to take an AP class and do worse? Is it better to take a college prep class and do better? What if my school doesn't offer the AP class and I don't have that choice? We are never, ever going to look down upon an application of a student who attends a school that doesn't have AP classes. You are never going to be disadvantaged in that. As long as you take the most rigorous courses available to you, you will be able to get our most rigorous indicator. That's not always what you need to do to be admitted to Denison. And I think it's really important, all of these details, what it really comes back to is what Jessie said of don't sacrifice your humanity. You only exist in high school once. And so you need to pick the courses that are going to be the best fit for you. Lastly, this question or this set of questions, I'm sure, John, that you have heard, if you've done over 300 versions of this podcast, you've probably heard about 300 answers to this. And so you cannot do anything as a student or a parent about how we're going to evaluate your application. All you can do is put forward the best application possible.
Well, I think that's great advice. There is a lot, students and families, that you control in the admissions process, but there's certainly a lot that you don't control. So, as they said, put your best foot forward and make sure you understand, as indicated here by both Jessie and Caitlin, that you are evaluated based on the context of your high school. What is available to you at your high school? What did you decide to take over 4 years? And yes, of course, how did you perform? I love that you talked about the fact that the number one indicator in terms of academics is the transcript. Why? Because you have 4 years of opportunity, students, to show the ramps that you've built, the on-ramps, off-ramps, and as admissions professionals, that's far more important than a 3 or 4 hour test on a Saturday morning. You also talked about the fact that Denison has been test optional since 2007. So although many schools went test optional because of the pandemic, that's something that Denison has practiced for years. And so they're very used to that part of the application review. And I also appreciate how you gave the insight in terms of the GPA. You're evaluating thousands of high schools throughout the country and beyond. And so to standardize GPA, you do in fact recalculate. So Jessie and Caitlin, we really appreciate that insight. So we're going to go back to you, Jessie. The personal statement offers a window into the student beyond the overall application. Can you share an example of an essay that really resonated with your team? And what are some common mistakes you frequently see in essays or even supplemental responses?
Yes, I will start by saying I think the stress around the college admissions essay disproportionately matches with the level of importance it actually takes in admission review, at least for a highly selective college like Denison, which is to say you need to write an essay that is good enough. It needs to match your transcript. It needs to give us confidence that all of the other parts, your English grades, are real because you're a good writer. Like we see your essay and we see your grades and we say, oh, these corroborate each other. And so I think often it is an area that students can control. And so there is a bit of a zeitgeist around making it the ultimate thing. But in my reality, reviewing applications, it is good and important, but it is not more important than your transcript. It's not more important than, your interest in the college. So that said, an essay I loved was from a student here in our backyard in Columbus, Ohio. And he had a part-time job working at McDonald's, which, as an aside, writing about your part-time job is one of the best things you can do because it implies a lot of positive qualities like time management and being like an adult and earning your own income. But aside, his was actually really funny because he wrote about cleaning the frappe machine at McDonald's, but he narrated the essay as if he was Morgan Freeman in The Shawshank Redemption. And it was hilarious. I think maybe you've gotten this sense already, but there are real humans reading your application. And we read 50 to 60 of these a day. And so if there's a little humor done well, it is so enjoyable for the human who's reading your application. It has to be done well. But in this case, it was. And it was memorable. And we actually wrote to the student and said, hey, our office voted you had the best essay this year. He enrolled. And not because of that, probably, but in tandem, he enrolled. So those are two elements that I think I enjoy seeing in an application. Kaylin's going to talk about things that we see potentially frequent mistakes or things, let's just say things we enjoy seeing less when we read applications.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, my follow-up to Jessie is a great example of how it's a human process because I actually think that humor is very dangerous in an essay because if it's not done well, it doesn't go well, right? So an essay should reflect you. If you are funny, sure, try it. But if you're not funny, don't take Jessie's advice because it's not going to be a good essay. So I think, number one, my mistake answer that I will give is this essay should reflect who you are, right? It should not be funny if you're not funny. It should not read like a Pulitzer Prize winning article if you are not a Pulitzer Prize level writer. And most of you aren't because you're between the ages of 13 and 17 as you're listening to this. So that's mistake number one, is to try and be something that you are not. We recognize that when you're writing this, you are somewhere between 16 and 18 and probably write just like that. Some of the other things I think are smart to avoid are really charged topics. As Jessie said, there are humans reading these, and you don't know who the person reading your essay is. The reality is that your Common App essay is going to go to a lot of people, not just Denison. It's going to go to anyone that you submit the application to. And so I think that trying to be really polarizing can be dangerous. It's your essay, do what you want, but just maybe take that note. I think the other error that I see is writing about someone else. I think that's probably the number one thing to avoid. I think that you need to think about your essay and the topic that you choose as the vehicle for your story. So there are many examples of essays that really honor a relationship with someone else in your life. And while that relationship might be a great vehicle to tell me more about you, oftentimes what happens in an essay like that is the essay becomes an ode to someone else. And what happens at the end of that essay? Well, I think, your sister seems great. I would love to admit your sister. I don't know anything about you, though. So I think really making sure that you take this time to write about yourself. To the second part of your question, John, things in supplements, I think that something that students really should remember is that supplements are important too. I think, as Jessie said, there is a lot of pressure and time put on the essay, likely because at the point of writing the essay, it's probably one of the only things left that you can control because your grades are done. Your activities are pretty much done. You're not writing your recommendations, etc. But I think what happens often is that students save the supplements until far too late because they've put so much pressure on themselves to get the perfect essay, and I'm using quotations there, and they forget and they rush their supplements. If a college is asking for a supplemental response, It is because that is important. In some cases, in my experience, that might be the most important part of the non-transcript application. I think that's the end of my answer. I think I had something else, but I'm done. Yep.
Can I add one thing? This is not an essay, but another part of how Denison captures a student's personality, background, interest is through admission interviews. So we stop short of requiring admission interviews at Denison, but for many, many students, I would think of it as a supplemental essay in that it is your opportunity to connect with a member of our team. Often it's a Denison senior who actually conducts the interviews, and for us to ask you questions that are not about your resume. We ask about time you learned something new, like we ask you to teach us something that you're interested in. So it's not about your resume, but it's a huge opportunity for us to learn about you. And again, at the emphasizing your essay, I would say if a college offers interviews, and I know many do not, but we really lean into that, especially given the residential, relational nature of our campus. We want to assess your interest and willingness and ability to interview. And it's not to say you have to pass with flying colors, but someone who's willing to sign up for an interview is probably going to be a better match for Denison than someone who's not willing to sign up for an interview.
John, I have one more piece that I forgot if I can add. And that is, I think the last kind of mistake that students sometimes make is having too many eyes on their essay. I think you need to limit the number of people reading and editing your essay, because what ultimately happens is the voice of that essay becomes the voice of someone else. And so I think it is extremely important to have some other eyes on your essay to make sure that you don't have any huge glaring errors, but I wouldn't have too many eyes.
Hey, podcast friends, if you've been enjoying the College Admissions Process podcast, I'm excited to share my new book, Straight from the Admissions Office, Insider Strategies for College Applications. It's packed with insights and tips from over 250 podcast episodes with admissions professionals designed to make the college process less overwhelming. Whether you're a student, parent, or college counselor, it's a valuable resource for navigating the admissions process. By grabbing a copy, you're also helping to support the podcast. The links are in the show notes. Thank you, and best wishes to all with the college admissions process.
Well, thank you so much, Jesse and Caitlin. You gave so many great pieces of advice. First off, students, families, please understand that there are real humans on the other side reading the essay, the supplementals. No school has ever reported on the podcast that they're using AI to review those essays. And so it's very important to understand that you're using your authentic voice and that, in fact, it's a human being on the other side. I also love the fact that you talked about don't wait until the very end to write a supplemental. You're right. So many students spend so much time on their personal statement that when they see a school has a supplemental, many times they get, I guess, a little annoyed because, oh man, another essay or two. But as you said, it is so important to any school that's asking for the supplemental. And Caitlin, you're right. You mentioned it and it's come up before. Sometimes in a competitive application pool where so many students have almost flawless GPAs, those that submit standardized tests almost have flawless standardized tests, that supplemental can be the tipping point. And so students, make sure that you're putting ample time into it. Also because many schools are not necessarily interviewing, not necessarily giving the opportunity to interview because there are so many students that apply. And so use it as that to really give insight into who you are and your demonstrated understanding of the institution that you're applying to. And at the very beginning of the answer, you talked about part-time jobs, Jesse. Such an important point. So many students that I know that have a part-time job and they feel embarrassed almost to share that, which is such a mistake, students, because you have to give the context. If you have a part-time job, aside from the great example that you gave in the essay, but if you have a part-time job, that might be the reason why you're not in 4 activities, 5 activities, or whatever it is. And so if you leave your part-time job outside of the overall application, now you're leaving it up to the admissions professionals, who again are human beings, to speculate as to why you might not have too many activities listed. And so anytime you leave it to an admissions rep to speculate, most times, students, it's not going to work in your favor. So you want to have a comprehensive, complete story, if you will, of your entire life, what you do inside of the classroom and outside. So again, Jesse and Caitlin, we really appreciate that. Grace, we're going to go back to you because Denison, of course, is known for academic strengths across the board, such as economics, global studies, data analytics, the arts, the sciences, and so much more. What academic programs, innovations, or research initiatives are you especially excited about right now?
Yeah, so there's always so much happening with our academics. All of our programs, at least in my opinion, are extremely strong. Our two most popular majors are communications and economics. And then we've recently introduced a new finance major, which is a bachelor's of science. So students that are interested in that have that opportunity. But I think specifically kind of looking forward to the coming months, I think students are getting really excited about summer scholars projects. Jesse mentioned it a little bit earlier, but that's an opportunity that students have to be on campus for 5 to 10 weeks over the summer and get paid a stipend for a research project of their design. They work with our Liska Center for Intellectual Engagement to craft that proposal and get it approved. And students can pursue projects in all the different disciplines. So, of course, those traditional STEM, lab work, or you can do something in the social sciences or humanities and fine arts. The opportunities are really endless for students there. I think also students are really excited about our Red Frame Lab, which is our Center for Business and Entrepreneurship on campus. That's a great opportunity for students that are interested in pursuing those careers postgraduate to get that work experience while they're here as an undergrad. I know a lot of people that are involved with their consulting work, which is awesome. You work with clients in Columbus. And then I think, something everyone on campus is really anticipating right now is the opening of Noble Hall, which is slated for the fall. That's going to be our new home for computer science and data analytics. As you mentioned, data analytics, those are two of our fastest growing majors on campus. And of course, they're super big industries right now and super important. So we want to make sure that we have space to accommodate those students. So we're all really excited for that building to open soon.
Well, that sounds really exciting. And when you have new programs and new buildings, you know that things are going really well at Denison as you continue to grow and be the terrific school that you are. Now, Grace, what support system does Denison provide for students that may have had an IEP or a 504 plan or some learning difference while they were in high school to ensure that they can fully thrive academically and personally once they're on the amazing Denison campus?
Yeah, I think in general, Denison has so many resources for students to receive assistance. I think specifically for learning differences, Denison has our Academic Resource Center, which we nickname ARC, where students can go to plan their different accommodations through an officer there. Tutors and TAs will work with all students, typically in group settings, but there are appointments for one-on-one. So those are super helpful for students. Additionally, as we're a four-year residential campus, we have a bunch of mental health resources on campus through our Hoagland Wellness Center, so they're super helpful to go to. Also in our Hoagland Wellness Center, we have mental, physical, and financial assistance available for all students. So I think having that on campus and something that is so easily accessible is really helpful for our students.
Well, we appreciate that. And I always put the Office of Undergraduate Admissions in the show notes. So, Jesse, Caitlin, or Grace, if there are any links to any other resources that you'd like me to share with the listeners, just send them to me. And of course, we'll make them available in the show notes. And by the way, students and families listening, it's always best not to look at the third party websites, but always go to the university website because they have the latest and greatest information. It is their job to provide you with updates in terms of what their schools offer. So again, it's always important to go directly to the university's individual website instead of third-party sites. Now, Caitlin, we're going to come back to you. You've worked closely over the years with so many students, families, and counselors. What's one misconception you wish people better understood about applying to Denison or attending a liberal arts college?
Thanks, John. I think two things. Generally, about attending a liberal arts college, you do not need to be liberal or interested in the arts, right? We have students from a wide variety of backgrounds in every sense of that phrase. And that's the case at other liberal arts and science colleges as well. So I think something that people struggle to understand is you can go to medical school after attending a liberal arts college. You can go to business school. You can go to law school. You can become anything you want to be going to any liberal arts and science college, not just Denison. I think Denison specifically, and Jesse alluded to this earlier in the show, demonstrated interest is very important in the application process here at Denison. We really want to admit students who are interested in Denison, and we're very transparent with counselors, with students, and with families on the road about this. So whether it's signing up for a virtual interview, as Jesse talked about, whether it's attending a virtual information session, or if you can come to campus, that's great too. But we don't expect students from across the country or the world to always be able to come visit us in Granville. We do expect them to try to show that they've done at least a little bit of research or engagement with the college. Jesse, do you have anything else that I missed there?
I agree. You do not have to be a Democrat or an artist to go to a liberal arts college. And I think we laugh when we say that, but also there is a question in people's minds. So you can be a non-artist conservative student and enjoy liberal arts college. I think my thought is about misconceptions wise about selectivity and admission and what students can expect. And we had a 22% admit rate this year at Denison. So, less than a quarter of the students who applied were admitted. To that, I would like to say, if you are a student who gains admission to a very selective school, 22%, 5%, anything lower, certainly you deserved it. If you are a student who does not gain admission to a very selective school, it is not because you certainly did not deserve it. And there are many, many institutional priorities, demonstrated interest levels, niches in play. The best way I can say it is that Caitlin and I work for the admission office, but we work in the Division of Enrollment Management. And so many offices like ours, you see them as the gatekeepers, and we are, but we also are managing the enrollment for the entirety of the university and the college. And there are factors beyond your qualification that will be at play in file review. And so for students, I would hate for a student to feel like a denial from a very selective school is a referendum on who they are as a person. And hopefully this entire process is not a referendum, positive or negative, on your value as a human. But I do know that it's difficult to receive unexpected news or to be like, what happened? Was it this comma in my essay? Was it that I didn't list my activities in the right order? And, Caitlin and I are just like, oh, it was none of those things. And we can't discuss it with you, but it has to do with things far beyond the actual information you put in your application.
Well, I'm so glad that you touched upon that because so many students feel exactly what you described, which is if they don't get admitted, they feel that it's something that they did in their essay. Maybe it was their GPA. Maybe they didn't do enough. And the college admissions process, students, although it feels very personal, as mentioned here, it does not define your value. Let me give you an example. If it's a school that has 15% or less in terms of their admissions rate, that is a reach school for any student that's applying, despite what your academics show, despite what your activities show, because there are so many schools that are getting an increase of applications that they can literally, and we discussed this many times on the podcast episodes, they can literally fill their classes 3 times over. And if you look student to student in terms of academic profile and the activities that they chose to participate outside of school, guess what? It's actually quite similar. But as Jesse mentioned so beautifully, there's this thing called institutional priorities, which is a real thing. It could be something about the geographic distribution. It could be in schools that are admitting by school. Maybe they need more people in one school or the other. There are so many different types of priorities. And frankly, that's the thing, students, that we don't control. We're not necessarily going to know what those priorities are, but it's important to be educated and understand that although we think that the college admissions process is 100% about the students, and it's certainly about you, But make no mistake about it, there are these things called institutional priorities, which also help determine who gets in or not. So I know it's difficult, but try not to take it so personal, because many times it's not your GPA or that supplemental essay. So again, I really appreciate that. And before we wrap up, is there a question I didn't ask that you wish I had, or a topic that simply didn't come up that you'd like to share with us now?
I think we've been pretty thorough, John, so I don't think there's anything else unless Jesse feels differently.
Grace, if you have anything that you feel like is a standout, like quintessential Denison moment for you, or like a big highlight from your year this year, do you want to talk about that briefly?
I always like to mention, when I'm giving tours, I like to mention some of the amazing traditions that we have on campus. So every fall we have our annual Denison Day. So that's a day that our university programming council really spearheads to make it a fun event. We have food trucks on campus. We have a concert out on our Shackelford Commons, and that's just a super fun event that we have on campus, and it's just one of many that students can look forward to when they attend here.
Well, we appreciate that. And Jesse, Caitlin, and Grace, you've all been outstanding. This is such a great conversation. Unfortunately, it does lead us to that last question, which I know each of you are going to give one, because that question is always, what are your top 3 pieces of advice for students and parents as they navigate the college search and application process? And since there's 3 of you, you're each going to give one. So go ahead.
I'll start. My advice is to parents. It is to not be more famous in the admission office than your child. I'm sure you would never, but we have a lot of stories to tell.
Grace, do you want to go up next?
Yes, I can go next, and mine is specifically for high schoolers. My advice is that college is not the end of everything, it's just the beginning. So, really look into colleges, apply to colleges where you believe you will be set up for success for whatever that means for you, whether that's, personal development, if you're interested in athletics, going somewhere where you can develop with a team, or going somewhere where you can major in something that will make you a lot of money. Whatever success means to you, I just urge students to pursue that.
Thank you so much, Grace. We appreciate you. And Caitlin?
My piece of advice is to remember that you can always transfer. The place that you start doesn't necessarily have to be the place that you end. And while I hope everyone listening and every student finds their home for 4 years the first time as someone who transferred, I think it's really important to remember that that's not always the case for everyone.
Well, that's such terrific advice. And I know so many students that start somewhere, and to your point, they do transfer. And I love what you said. It's not where you start necessarily, but it's certainly where you end. So, Jesse, Caitlin, Grace, I can't thank you enough for your time today. I'm so happy, as I know that this conversation is going to help so many students and their families as they navigate through the college process. I hope to have you all again in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And to everyone out there, good luck with the college search. Take care all, and best wishes.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of The CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The CAP. Thank you for listening to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success.